Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Chris here, and today is December 14th, 2021, and in this video, we're going to be continuing our career comparison series with a comparison of Andy Murray, Jim Courier, and Stanislas Wawrinka. Now, if you guys are new to this channel, then I'd like to encourage you to take a minute to hit the subscribe button down below. Also, please don't forget to share this video with your friends if you enjoy content like this. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, guys, so we're going to start things off today with Andy Murray. Andy Murray is, of course, the youngest of the three players in this particular topic. He turned pro back in the year 2005, and he would reach his first Grand Slam final at the 2008 US Open, where he would lose to Roger Federer in 3 sets. Now, it would take Andy Murray a bit of time to really become a champion at the Grand Slam level. He would lose his first 4 Grand Slam finals, 3 of the 4 being to Roger Federer, who would defeat him in those finals. And then he would win the 2012 US Open, which was his maiden slam, his first Grand Slam title. And he would follow that up by winning Wimbledon the following year. And then it would take him a few more years due to some injuries to win his 3rd Grand Slam title, which would come at the 2016 edition of Wimbledon. Throughout the course of his career, Andy Murray would do quite well at the Olympics, winning the gold medal there twice, once in 2012 and then the other time in 2016. He would also win the World Tour Finals event one time in 2016 when he would defeat Novak Djokovic, and he would finish the year #1 that year as well. So 2016 is kind of like the high point in Andy Murray's career. Now, Murray was notably foiled by Djokovic at the Australian Open. They played each other at that event probably about 5 times, 6 times, not sure the exact number, but it was quite a few times, and every time Djokovic would get the better of Murray. So it was an event where Murray kind of initially did really well. He won a lot of matches there, he made a lot of finals, but he was never able to overcome Djokovic at the Australian Open. And then that brings us to Stanislas Wawrinka, who turned pro back in the year 2003. Now, Stanislas Wawrinka had a very interesting career because he didn't really start to break through at the Grand Slams until much later. He was about 26 years old or 25 years old by the time he really first started to make the quarterfinals at the Grand Slams with any kind of regularity. But the interesting thing about it is that once he did start making quarterfinals, he became a much bigger threat to the top players, and he would defeat Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open in 2014, and he would go on to win the tournament that year, defeating Rafael Nadal in the finals. That was his first Grand Slam title, but it took him until he was almost 29 years old to win that first Grand Slam title. Now, a lot of people at that point kind of wrote Stan off as being a one-slam wonder, especially considering how much older he was than most players who win their first Grand Slam title. There are some other good examples of that, like Peter Korda, who was, I think, 29 when he won the Australian Open, and Andreas Gomez, who was 30 years old when he won the French Open. But in the case of those players, that was the only Grand Slam that they won. And of course, Wawrinka would have continuous good results going forward. He would manage to win the French Open the next year, and he would win the US Open the following year, defeating Djokovic in the finals on both occasions. So there was a period of time where Wawrinka was actually undefeated in finals, and he had a very impressive winning streak against Novak Djokovic, who I discussed in one of my previous videos as being probably the greatest player in the history of the game. Now, as time would go on, Stan would start to struggle with injuries, and he would eventually start to slow down a little bit after the 2017 season. So Stanislas Wawrinka had a very good career especially when you consider where he started, you know, struggling to make the second week of the majors. But he was really able to turn that around. And another big point in his favor is the fact that he was able to win a lot of different majors, right? He was able to win the Australian, the French, the US Open. He wasn't limited so much to a certain slam like a player like Gustavo Kuerten, for example, who was very dominant at the French Open, but didn't have great results at those other major championships. And then finally, that brings us to Jim Courier, who admittedly played in a different generation from either Wawrinka or Murray. But Jim had a very, very good career and would win his first Grand Slam title at the 1991 French Open, where he would defeat Andre Agassi in 5 sets. Now, once he won his first Grand Slam title, Jim would go on a bit of a roll, and he would win the Australian Open the following year and would also retain his French Open title in 1992, where he would defeat Peter Korda in the finals. After that, he would reach the finals of the Australian Open in 1993, where he would defeat Stefan Edberg, but he would lose the French Open finals in 1993. So ultimately, this would kind of be the end for Jim Courier in terms of winning Grand Slam titles, but he would manage to reach the finals of every Grand Slam in the course of his career. He was the first player to do that since Rod Laver in 1969. And that's a very unique achievement that he had, and it's a reason why I would put him up quite high in this particular comparison video. So one of the reasons that I wanted to make this video as well was because I had a subscriber that had mentioned to me that there's like a different value between winning the Australian Open versus winning the US Open, and one Grand Slam title might be worth more than another one. And I think there's some validity to this argument, because the Australian Open, especially back prior to the late 1980s, wasn't a really well-attended tournament, and in many cases the best players in the world were not the ones who were winning that title. On the one hand, the Australian Open prior to 1988 was not well attended. A lot of times there would be draws of 60 players, or sometimes fewer than that would actually show up to play at that event, and a lot of times it wasn't being won by the top guys. So you could make that argument certainly for the tournaments before the late 80s. But I think after that, you kind of have to look at them all as being about the same. And in this particular case, I wouldn't say that Murray had a better career because he was able to win Wimbledon and the US Open, where Jim Courier wasn't able to win those two events. I still would put them as being pretty much the same level by that point, by the time that Jim was winning them. So if I had to rank these 3 players in order, from who I think had the best career to who I think had the worst career, I would put Stanislas Wawrinka in 3rd place. Stan's record against Djokovic is extremely impressive, and the fact that he was able to turn his career around at the age of 28 or 27 is also a huge point in his favor. But he's the only player in this comparison to have not held the #1 ranking, and he doesn't have nearly as many titles or Masters level titles as well as Courier or Murray. So I have to put him in 3rd place because of that. Coming in 2nd place, I think a lot of you guys are going to be surprised by this, is Andy Murray. Now, the reason I put Murray in 2nd place is because despite of the fact that he had an incredible turnaround in his career, I mean, he went on to win Wimbledon twice, he went on to defeat Djokovic in the finals of 2 Grand Slams. But because of the fact that he wasn't able to win the Australian Open, I feel that it kind of diminishes his placement here a little bit, and I would give that edge to Courier, who had a very solid record against many of the players from the early 90s. He really dominated just about everybody from his generation when he was at the very top of the game. So in 1st place, I would put Jim Courier. I have to give a lot of credit to his amazing run at the Australian Open and at the French Open during the early 90s. And the way that he was able to dominate players like Andre Agassi is extremely impressive. So I would put Courier as #1, I would put Andy Murray as #2, and I would put Stanislas Wawrinka as number 3. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you at the next one. This is Chris, signing out.